Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This person is a serial entrepreneur and has stopped by to talk about her latest product, Easy Bar Box for restaurants, which help seal and hold food items. Please help me welcome Marj Weir. How is it going, Marj?
Hi, thank you. You said my name right. That was good.
Nice. I appreciate that. Like I said, I try to get people names right when I'm introducing them, and I have introduced a lot of people and a lot of different names, so that's one of the things that I always want to make sure I get right. I know my name is kind of pretty straightforward, being David, but I definitely want to get other people's names right. So I appreciate you for giving me some time here today, this afternoon, to talk about your journey as an entrepreneur, as well as, hit on some of the different products that you have out. I know we're going to kind of focus in on the Easy Bar Box, but that's just kind of the latest product in your line of products. But we also talk about the Easy Light Wraps, and then the FitWear, which is, I guess, the Tailgate box, if I have that correctly. But I guess starting with, the latest and greatest Easy Bar Box, can you kind of describe that for the audience, just so they, as we're going through this interview, have an understanding of kind of, what it is and the purpose that it serves?
Yeah, sure. So I started off, so it goes back 20 years when I did the Tailgater box, FitWear. And then when doing my market research about using that as a condiment box at a restaurant, to keep all your condiments at the bar, he said, no, everybody gets those bar boxes for free, which you have seen a million times, the black box that holds cherries, onions, and everybody sticks their hands in it and eats out of it and has lunch, right? And so I came up with one that seals, I'm trying to see, where am I? It seals each item separately under two lids. So you could essentially keep part of it covered, your expensive cherries, nuts, olives, and the other one open, or the lid off, and grab those oranges and limes and lemon slices and not have all this cross-contamination. So I developed it pre-COVID, but since COVID, people are well aware of germs and everything. Yep. And I have taken lots of photos of nasty bar boxes since then.
So you're saying that people typically get, and I actually got it back in high school. I worked at Little Caesars, so I'm familiar with those bar boxes as I was kind of making the pizzas, if you will. So you're saying
that it would work for that too. That's the ticket.
So because I guess the boxes that I remember was like, they were actually clear, but it was, say, one for the bacon, one for the pineapples, one for, I guess, whatever food item. And then they, like you said, they had the lid so that, I guess you can cover it or whatever the case may be. But I'm not sure how great the lid was from a
It was just one big plastic lid, and they break all the time. Because I owned a restaurant for a while, and that's why I did that too, was people would put it away in between, and they'd tip it, and everything, the cherry juice would run into and ruin, right? The cherry juice runs into the olives, and now you're screwed. All of that gets thrown away. It's a ton of product gets thrown.
No, and I definitely would agree with you on that. And I'm not even sure if those traditional, if you will, or conventional storage containers are good sealers. Obviously, they hold food items, but I'm not sure how good of a sealer they are. So I guess from just a patentability perspective, and I guess we'll kind of get more off into the IP a little bit later, but I guess what was it that got yours over the hump? Because I guess as I look at it, you think of, this is a container, or the conventional box is a container that has a lid. Then you look at yours. Is it the fact that it holds multiple and seals multiple items at a time? What was it that kind of allowed yours to get protectable via a patent?
Yep, that's part of it, is that it seals multiple items at a time, and that it's removable, and that it also sits within an existing box. So the really cool thing about this, besides the sealability, so say that you could have stackers. Basically, instead of that ugly black plastic box that's just, one of thousands, if you have those wood, you could do tiered different heights, and then this just sets on. The other thing is that it can be good for portable bars. They're stackable. So you could stack 6 of these and carry it out. So if you think like pool bars,
right,
where they might set up different locations, or when you go to a concert or you go to a theater thing, more like theater where they have a break and everybody runs and they have bars set up everywhere. Real easy to take, easy to return. And then, like you said, pizza, sushi, there's all these companies. So there's definitely not something as sealable at all that's on the market.
No, and I definitely would agree with that. You talked a little bit. You had talked a little bit about it as far as the inspiration. I typically ask, what's the inspiration? What was the inspiration for the actual product? And you said that you own a bar, or I would imagine that outside of owning a bar or a restaurant, you actually maybe even worked within that industry for a number of years.
Yes. So I mean, for years earlier, I had catered on the side. I worked in a restaurant when I was younger, right? My first job was a paper route, but after that, I worked at a pizza place too. I don't even remember. I'm so old, I don't remember what we took stuff out of. I think they had the line with the metal containers, like the typical line. But and that wasn't sealed, but you don't need it sealed because it's so chilled. It's so cold. Right. Mostly and it's flat, so it's gonna stay safe. But then when we'd have employees, we would be busy till 1, and then they would take a break or shift change, and you start busy again at 4 or 5, and they would shove that thing in the cooler, and multiple times things would run together, and I'd be so pissed because we're small, it's expensive, it's just pretty much wrecked. Right. And anyway, I was like, well, I need to take my technology from my other product, my other patent, prep and serve, tailgater box, those sealed containers, and bring it over to this. And because I was thinking, oh, this is perfect. This tailgater box is perfect for the bar. But when I go to other bartenders and they'd say, no, this is what we use. We get these for free. And I'm like, yeah, you get it for free, but you're losing how much product daily.
Out of it, yep. So how because I'm sure that you kind of talked to a number of restaurants about this issue, how maybe number one, receptive they were to what you have, but also, I guess, maybe being receptive is kind of one part of the puzzle, saying that they kind of want to place orders another part. So I guess how have you got that up until this point in time?
Yeah, super receptive. I did the National Bar Show. Okay. NBS. National Bar Show in Las Vegas. And I actually got to present on stage, and they loved it. They didn't love my presentation. It was very high pressure. And it was like, I went thinking that these people I'm presenting to are actually money guys that would invest. And bullshit, but it was like the managers of some major hotels, like the Wynn and some of those major hotels, and they were like, "Oh my God, we could use this." Then I had people come to my booth that had, large operations. I mean, huge in some cases, and they were interested, except if it was made. And then I didn't have the patent yet, so the patent took a while. And I have people on tape. And then the one who really loved it was the hospitality, what's she called, with the government. That the food, who's the one who comes in, looks at your location and sees that you're following all food safety rules. Like the inspector, maybe? I can't think of her name, or what that, yeah. So she loved it. She said she couldn't endorse anything. So
really,
because flies, like fruit flies,
that's true.
Flies out too. So
and I guess this is an interesting thing. I was telling you kind of beforehand offline about, I guess, the reason for like the podcast and the channel, and that being to kind of help out aspiring entrepreneurs to hopefully get a better kind of clarity of the picture before they kind of decide or not to decide to go off into entrepreneurship and building a business. How I guess maybe more, I don't want to use the word easy because probably not the right word, but just being inventive in a space that you already have experience in? Does that kind of make things a little bit more easier, or a little bit more comfortable for you, seeing that you had a restaurant for a number of years and kind of worked within that industry for a number of years, and you actually know the deficiencies and being able to say, okay, we can do this and do that better, but not only just saying it, but actually kind of putting pen and paper and saying, okay, let me come up with something. Was that kind of a little easier because it was an industry that you're already familiar with?
Yep. I would say I'm really lucky. I mean, I have a God-given talent for spatial. I can see things before they become something. I've done a lot of home remodels. I'm a realtor, which is why I came up. All of my products were based on need. And the Snackle box, Prep and Serve Tailgater box, that's all was something that was based on a need when I had little kids, and I tried to make food quick, and restaurants all have the line and we don't at home. And it's basically creating the line that you serve out of at any food location. And then the patenting situation, that first patent was more than $45,000.
Hold on.
It wasn't all me, a venture capital group.
Are you talking about the patent on the Easy Bar box, or the patent on
the patent on Prep and Serve Tailgater box? That was more than $45,000. So this bar box was a lot less because it was one patent attorney, and I know a lot more than I did back then.
No, and that's actually interesting. And I know you said you checked out some of the prior interviews that I did, but I can tell you one thing I am amazed with. And again, I don't want to say this just because it is a fraternity with kind of being a patent attorney, because it is a kind of small space, if you will. But I am amazed with kind of bringing on guests and just their first. And again, this is maybe a good reason for the podcast, or a good plug for the podcast, but I'm just amazed on how that first experience with the patent attorney was like almost a horrific experience, whether it was because of the money or a lack of communication or kind of not being able to protect things abroad. It just seems like more people than not that I'm talking to, their first experiences was it was a challenge, to say the least. So when you tell me $45,000, I'm almost saying, or thinking to myself, you must have protected this thing in Europe and China, a number of different countries. This must have to be an extremely complex project or product, and it seems like that wasn't the case. So why did the first product?
Yeah, it was a multitude of attorneys and a venture capital group coming on board, and them going to their attorney. I mean, in the end, the final patent was issued from an attorney in Seattle that I'd never met before, never talked to in my life. That was the venture capital group that actually ended up paying that final. And, you know, they're used to big money. They're used to paying the $500 an hour, $600 an hour, and not blink an eye. And that's been quite a while ago, right? So I remember, and then the attorney, I guess part of that wasn't patent attorney. Part of that was a licensing attorney that I used, which was Venable out in Washington, D.C., and that was $500 an hour, and that was years and years ago, to look through my agreement with the venture capital group. They thought they'd have it licensed to Rubbermaid within 6 months. And, you know, here, you've never seen this on the market, so you know Rubbermaid didn't do it. I started with my first provisional patent was written with a woman that had worked for the patent office as an examiner. Yep. She was back in Minnesota and no longer part of that. So she helped me write that. She's not with us any longer. Okay. She helped me at the beginning. Then I went to a patent attorney in my little town that was a friend of a friend. And that was maybe $3,000. And they didn't, I think it was kind of, handed off to somebody like, well, here's this little housewife in my town and she's trying to patent this, help her out. And then I showed at a trade show, and the people there was a company that was very interested. They really liked it. I had a great prototype, and they said, get in contact with him when you get back. And on my drive home from the airport, I call this guy and go, I'm the one who has a patent on this, and so-and-so, president of the company, was interested. And it was a big company. Yeah. And he goes, I don't need to hear from you. I'll call you. Your patent's online. I can see everything. If we're interested, we'll get a hold of you. He was really nasty, and it was really scary. So he was the company attorney, right?
Hold on. He was an attorney?
He was the company attorney. He was the company patent attorney.
So why so nasty?
You tell me, because I'm calling him out of the blue. I mean, I've dealt with that a couple times where it's like, hey, we're the wall. We don't want, so we can go back to, you and I talked about the PTAB, about the patent office invalidating patents. Yeah. I mean, all those attorneys are trying to keep their company from paying anybody anything, basically. They don't want to pay for that most of the time. And I've had a very good plastics company that does a lot of food containers that twice I've been referred to by salespeople or somebody at a booth, and the patent attorney there, she goes, we don't want to talk to you. You know, she's not interested. So it's like, oh, well, forget it. But that scared me because I didn't know it was online. What happened is I said, yes, I want to file internationally other patents. And so that goes and puts your patent online within, I think it's 9 months. You would know better than me, but it becomes public, and I didn't know that.
What do you mean when you say online? Are you talking like just the internet?
It's public. It's public on the USPTO within 9 months.
Well, typically when you file an application, unless you select that you don't want it to publish, and that's rarely selected, the application is going to automatically the application is going to automatically publish in 18 months or a year and a half.
Right, but you don't want to. I mean, I wouldn't have published. I didn't want it out there before it's ever issued. And then, but if you're going international, it gets published. So I wasn't aware of that.
What's the? I guess. Why are you maybe against it being published?
Oh my God, I don't want people to be able to, because it's not even issued. If it's published and it's not even issued, like they're still examining it, they're still deciding, then companies can look at what you got out there and figure out their workaround sooner. I mean, that's all they do.
No, yeah, for sure.
All the time.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, and I have been with companies who had said, hey, David, we need to get around this patent. And, no, that's just a part of the game where it's almost like being a hired gun. You help, hey, okay, you need to, what product do you have? Okay, I still read on this patent, or, okay, that one gets around it. And I guess you play that game. But it seems like at some point, I guess, I'm not sure.
I wouldn't want it published till it's issued, because that gives you a running start at least. I mean, I didn't know that would happen. I was never made aware from that attorney that it was online now. And so that was a shocker to hear that guy say, your whole patent's here, I can read it. I don't need to talk to you. We'll call you if it's important.
Well, I'll say this, though. On the flip side of things, just playing devil's advocate, say, for example, you have your patent is pending before the USPTO, and then you're maybe out and about, and you see somebody that is selling something that's similar to what you have. Now, typically, what you can do is send them a cease and desist letter and say, hey, we have a patent application pending. Your product infringes on our claims. Now, they will want to kind of look at the patent or look at your patent application. Yeah. But I guess ultimately, they will be on notice at that point, to the extent that if they continue to sell their product, they can be held liable for additional damages because they knew of things that were out there and continue to sell their product. But if the product, if your patent is not made public so that they can kind of see and look at the patent, then you don't get that opportunity for additional damages, or willful damages, what we call it, because they had no idea of the patent. Does that make sense?
Well, wouldn't you be able to then send them a copy of what you have patent pending? Wouldn't you be able to send them what has been filed?
Oh, for sure. But I think at that point you're back to square one anyway in terms of them looking at your patent and saying, okay, how do I get around this so I'm not infringing it? So it seems like kind of maybe you're back to square one anyway. If I guess if I guess people it's rarely done, but it's interesting because it is something that you can kind of select to say, hey, we don't want it published. But it seems like that's kind of a minority of a position that's in a minority as opposed to like a ton of people.
I would totally not want published until I've got something going so that I can get out there and try to sell the idea first. Right. I mean, that's my preference, but part of it was just not even knowing, like not being aware.
Like this was
and I did file in China, and that was another 3,500. But there were, over the years, there were 8 attorneys involved in that patent. Because I've dealt with 9 patent attorneys over the years.
So how many attorneys of those?
You're not including you, because I haven't dealt with you yet.
Right. Well, how many attorneys? So you're talking about 8 attorneys with the tailgater box.
Yeah.
So how many of those attorneys did you actually talk with? 8 is crazy.
I know it's crazy. I personally talked to 6 of them. There were 2. I want to say there's 3. And I'm talking about that examiner too, because she was a patent examiner. So yeah, she wasn't are you an attorney when you're an examiner? I can't remember.
No.
Are they all
an examiner? No. To be an examiner, you just have to have an engineering degree or science, engineering or hard science degree. So she may have been maybe a patent agent. So to be a patent agent, you have to have that hard science background.
I'm including her in that. So, and then I had an attorney that, so I went from there. I don't remember because it's been a while and because it was quite a few. But one, I'm a micro entity, and he never, I got the thing saying, you have $1,700 due to renew something. And it was a micro entity fee that he didn't even tell me about. I'm like, why would I be paying somebody else let me know? And I'm like, why the hell would I be paying you $1,700 when my micro entity fee is like $500? It was a huge difference.
Hold on, $1,700. What was the $1,700 for?
Well, that was for the renewal fee and his fee, their firm's fee.
Oh.
And I'm like, you didn't even bring up to me. I hire you to help me, and you don't even know it's a micro entity. I also went from the one to a big Minneapolis firm that was a well-known firm, and they're the ones that wrote the patent before I ever went to the venture capital company.
Yeah.
And then, so it's just been different ones along the way. I'd have to go to my notes. Someday I'll write a book about it, but it was a lot. It was a lot. I know that.
No,
I have a patent attorney I really like right now. She's like more of a personal relationship, because now that's been probably 5 years.
No. And that's what I was going to say. A lot of it is kind of just, okay, do I feel comfortable with this person? Obviously, you want the patent attorney to be knowledgeable, but it's another thing of, okay, is this person cool to work with? Do they communicate? Just those personable skills that kind of get you a long way. And it seems like just a lot of guests that I have on, especially that first attorney, man, it's almost like they took them through the ringer, unfortunately.
And he's not one in counting, because he wasn't working for me. He was the other side. But, I never heard back from that company, and I didn't pursue it. I did that a lot. That would be a huge failure, is not pursuing more than once or twice in a conversation.
So then it seems because I typically ask, okay, what did you know anything about IP beforehand, before really kind of getting off into it? But I would imagine that just kind of based on that experience with the 8 attorneys and the venture capitalists and with the tailgate, the tailgate box, that maybe this was all like a new thing to you.
Right. I mean, by the time they went, I know better what questions to ask and everything. And I feel like there is this there's a couple attorneys where, but I've had at least 3 that I said, I'm not paying you, or I want my money back, because they did not do one had given me advice. I can't remember how that went, but we were having a conversation. So I'm a realtor. You have to say an agency thing that I'm not working for you. right now we just met and I'm a realtor and I want you to know that, right? That you are, that this is not a working relationship yet. Just, I'm letting you know I'm a realtor. We have to have this form first. So it should have been kind of like that, where we were having a conversation, and then I swear to God, maybe it was at a bar. I can't remember if it was, I know that I was at a happy hour with him, but
charges for that conversation.
And then I got a bill. Then we had a phone call, but it wasn't like I called him and said, I need to know something. I can't remember how it transpired, but it wasn't me knowingly hiring him. And I got a bill for $175. And I'm like, why am I paying you $100? What was this for? And then he said, oh, okay, you're right. I'm like, God, litigious.
No, than that, man, you're talking about communication and getting off to a bad start from a relationship standpoint.
No, it's like, that was the writings on the wall,
Sure.
every 10-minute kind of thing. But I know that's not all the attorneys. I'm old enough to have dealt with a few attorneys over time, right? But it's nice to have one in your corner. I'm sure you're a good communicator. That's totally it. It's the communication, right?
For sure. Yeah, just kind of having them understand the process and what's the next steps. And if they reach out to you for whatever reason, kind of maybe trying to get back to them within a reasonable amount of time and those things, especially for someone, again, big corporations who have IP counsel and you're communicating with them, they kind of know what's up more or less. But if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't know the process and this is their first time going through it, you almost have to kind of communicate at every step of the way. Actually, a patent went abandoned for what I would call lack of communication, and it had been abandoned for 2 years. And a buddy who I went to law school with, they reached out to me and said, hey, I got a family friend who patent's been abandoned for 2 years. For any attorney who knows, if your patent is abandoned for under 2 years, it's not that difficult to actually get it reinstated or revived. But if it's over 2 years, it's extremely difficult. So, tasked me, hey, can you help them out? And just kind of reading the email chain, it's like, man, you're talking about dropping the ball. But ultimately, I was able to get that patent revived and all is good. But again, looking back on it, it's like, man, if you just had communication, this situation would have been avoided, which it just wasn't there, unfortunately. Right. So, that's great. So then, you have the tailgate box. I still want to go through all these patents. So you have the tailgate box, which was like the thing that jump-started this whole entrepreneurship journey from like a product standpoint. You're doing that because I do want to hit on something that you said. You've been a serial entrepreneur for over 30 years and you seem like still are a realtor. So how is that balancing? Because that's another thing that I kind of want to maybe provide an answer to as it relates to the audience members is, how is that balancing, I guess, something else, in this case, realtor, being a realtor with, being an entrepreneur and, having a product and trying to get it to the market or get it licensed and kind of start to kind of build something around it. How is that juggling that?
It's nuts. I don't have a good excuse for it other than I have too many interests, and I've done real estate for 17 years and I can't let go because it's fun. I like it. I'm good at it. Yeah. And then I see opportunities. So it's hard to explain. I know you're supposed to focus on one thing, but I would also say I work all the time, but I love what I do. So that is, I don't have, my kids are growing. I don't have grandkids. I have a lot of autonomy to do my own thing on my own time. So yesterday, I said, this was like yesterday, I was like the down day because the day before I made breakfast at the inn I bought, which is a 10-bedroom hotel. I drove up here and showed 13 houses, all kind of concentrated in North Minneapolis. Went to Roberts, Wisconsin, where I have a farm I own, but my kids live at, and got things ready for a party that we're having this weekend. And that's where the Easy Light Wraps office is. Yeah. So I had to do some things with brackets with my daughter. And then went to dinner. that was it. And then yesterday I didn't get it nearly as much done. So I went, and I feel like the inn, I keep going, why did I buy this place? Like, am I insane? But God, it's great market research, right? Yeah. I mean, I talk to people all the time. I know what they need and what they're doing and what they travel with. And it's just really amazing market research. And that's always been my thing. I've done so many jobs that I see what people need. Before I did that first product, I worked for the state for 25 years. And I did freelance graphic design on the side because I worked part-time at the state when my kids were little. Yeah. And so it went from a state employee, which is a very set job, you know,
9 to 5, you know, routine.
Yeah, I mean, a paycheck to being an inventor, thinking I was being licensed to Rubbermaid, to like falling on my ass and losing my house. You know, it's just, I mean, really like a huge financial tumble. But we had the restaurant. We started in restaurant and real estate in 2007 when the market was just plunging. Yep. And it was good. And that's how I came up with Easy Light Wraps. So with the shades, that was totally born out of doing these remodels and seeing these lights and knowing that you need a simple solution. Like, it's always difficult to find an electrician.
Yep. So then I guess maybe moving on to that, from, okay, you had the Tailgate box, which it seems like that gave you a lot of experience.
That's my fourth child.
Right. Exactly. And then you have the Easy Light Wrap, which I would imagine that you kind of, you know, a lot more at this point in time. So it's not going to take 8 attorneys and maybe $45,000 to kind of get this patent and kind of get this off the ground. And it seems like maybe from what we were saying offline, that this thing has actually been pretty good to you as far as being sold in Walmart and on Amazon and some of the stores that you can actually get this actually a product. So can you maybe talk a little bit about Easy Light Wrap as well, and kind of what does that consist of?
Yeah, so the thing was that I really learned a couple things. Is one, no company will license you unless you can prove that it's worth money and that you're making money. Right. I can't tell you how many companies are run by people that the decision makers don't even have anything to do with it. This guy that I started with, Prep and Serve, he was a grocery guy, because Prep and Serve Tailgater Box, the bottom line is that those containers are based on deli containers, that instead of the round containers to do squares. And that food thing. So I had this grocery guy I ended up partnering with. He was the buyer for nylons and all these other makeup. Like, why is this guy the buyer for the grocery store for makeup and nylons and all these soft goods? It was like, this makes no sense. So you find out there's people that don't always have the working knowledge, right? Yep. That's why products don't always happen. And so for the Easy Light Wraps, I knew it wasn't something I could go license without proving that it's got value. Okay. And the reason I took off with that, and I had people saying, why don't you invent that? Why don't you work on that? And it's like, because I don't have time and I'm not, it's not my thing. I want to do this other one. But I did have an investor that he was remodeled. I worked with him and had bought and sold a few homes he'd done, as his agent. Yep. And I brought over a shade, and where he was working, I put it up in 5 minutes with Velcro, with the prototype where he was working, and he gave me a multi-$1,000 investment for me to go ahead and do that. And so I paid him an interest rate. He's a small part on my cap table. Yep. And he's the one who got it off the ground. Nice. And so then I had the money to go ahead and manufacture and such. It takes a lot more money than you'd expect when you're making a product. Yep. But it did get things rolling.
Gotcha. No, so yeah, it seems like that. Yeah, that story seems like there's a lot of, and I would imagine that just kind of dealing with the patent attorney at that point, it was a lot easier compared to the prior case. So that kind of really was a good thing. And then, okay, so what made you say, okay, I want to get back into it again, or develop and create another product with Easy Bar Box? Because it seemed like you had Easy Light Wrap, which seems to be doing pretty good. And what made you say, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and let's kind of recreate another product?
Yeah, so it wasn't really being made yet. Like, that idea started working in 2015. I mean, that's been 9 years ago. I started mulling it over. And in 2017, I didn't start selling Easy Light Wraps till 2019. Oh. And in 2017, that opportunity for the bar show came up.
Yep.
And because I did have a CAD guy I work with that's very reasonable, and because I'm good at drawing, I'm able to draw out exactly how I want something to look. They're not working from scratch. So,
Gotcha.
and then I've learned to talk to, so I spent 20 grand with my first CAD company with that first Tailgater box, iteration after iteration, their lingo. And then they were like, well, we should make some prototypes before this part's done. And I'm like, why with CAD would I make a prototype before we have it as perfect as possible? What's the point other than them making money, which is what their point was. So I had a much less expensive experience with the CAD guy. And I was able to come up with this guy in town who's amazing at making prototypes. And he did a 3D printed prototype. And 3D printed prototypes aren't as they're not always inexpensive.
Okay.
People think that's like, but he was able to polish the lids and everything. And so my prototype for that bar show was very workable. It was very ready to go and easy to demo at the show. And so, yeah, it's like everywhere along the line, you realize where the more information you can cut down and bring to an attorney, right? That's been more concise. You get more concise on what you're doing and cut out the extra, figure out for yourself what the points will be that you can, are probable licensing points. And your attorney can, drill it down. Instead, I think your first one, you're like, well, you want the whole world in that patent, and then they could write forever and charge a lot more, right? So,
yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree. And then I think it just kind of shows that to the extent that you have the prototypes and the drawings and things like that, it kind of shows, because I was telling you about the person who I was coaching and kind of trying to walk through the process with, typically, unfortunately, this is going to be a bad thing to say, but typically attorneys, they really want kind of the big company, because the big company has multi-million-dollar IP budget. That's going to continue to pay them year after year after year. Whereas, the small guy, to be honest, for me, I enjoy maybe working more so with the small guy just because it kind of means more to them. However, it's typically one-off, maybe two-off applications where a big company is going to give you $500,000 a year because they just have more of an IP budget for it. So you're not necessarily looking, I really don't kind of take just calls that I don't know. I'll kind of let them leave a voicemail, and then I'll listen to the voicemail and decide whether or not I want to return a phone call. So I'm not just kind of picking up the phone, I guess, willy-nilly with that. But I'm saying all that to say that the more that, to the extent that you can kind of get in front of a patent attorney, that you're buttoned up, you have the prototypes, you have the figures, you can kind of clearly state what it is that you're doing. And it's not like you're maybe just kind of wasting their time. It seems like the better off, or the better chance you will have to, not only be able to talk to them, but being able for them to say, okay, let's do something. Because just because you call an attorney and say, hey, I want you to represent me, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to represent that person. I'm looking for a number of things. Is it a good fit? Do this person look like they can pay their bills? Whatever the case may be. The more you have stuff buttoned up, the easier for me to kind of make that decision. Like, okay, this is a good client to have, and let me kind of, let's go forward in a relationship. So I guess I maybe did want to throw that out there for whatever it's worth. Because I know you have mentioned it, but yeah, the more you're buttoned up when you're going to your attorney and trying to have them kind of draft this application, it's going to work in your favor for sure.
It is. I mean, when you're working with a small guy, that is a lot of extra time sometimes. And then I'm sure you do. It's this guilt-ridden, like, I should be charging X. And that's like being a realtor. You watch that multi-million-dollar show, and it's like, oh yeah, 15 million, write it up, blah, 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 cash. And they get this giant check. Well, then try working with somebody who's got a budget of 200,000, first-time buyer, doesn't have their down payment, needs to use some government program, has never done this before. And it's so much more time, and you're getting paid so much less, but it's their first home, and it's really a big deal.
Yeah, it means more to them.
Kind of even it out to have some big clients and small clients, or you'll go broke.
No, for sure. Yep, for sure. No, exactly. I definitely agree with that. So then, I guess, what would you say was your biggest breakthrough, just with everything as it relates to the product side, the inventing side, whether it was with easy light wraps or easy bar box or Tailgater box, what would you say was your biggest maybe breakthrough with things that made you like, okay, I can do this?
Boy, I think getting that investment and going forward with Easy Light Wraps. Yeah. And I also had a couple fundraising campaigns for Tailgater Box, Prep and Serve Tailgater Box. Yeah. And, that people would give money for that. I ended up giving back. Like I did it where if I didn't make my goal, they got the money back. It's never been produced. I had 100 people put money up that were total strangers years ago for that. And I know that I have learned so much, and I know that I think where people drop the ball is they don't do enough pre-research. Does somebody want to buy what you made?
Right.
Do hundreds of thousands, do thousands? And you have to ask a lot of questions, and you need to have some brutally honest information. So my biggest breakthrough was probably that Prep and Serve Tailgater Box. I came up with my first idea after and listen, I did this just last week too. This was years and years and years ago. I went to help out at a fundraiser, had to bring like the onions, ketchup, mustard packets, sugar, creamers, all these little things for the food booth, right? And I said, there is no good container to bring all these things in one container. It's like, here I show up with my Tupperware in a basket and all these things, right? And this guy there said, you should make that. And that's when I started. That's when I started really working on that idea that had been like an idea in my head. And he worked for Whirlpool. And I thought, oh my God, Whirlpool's going to take this on. I was thinking of it as part of the fridge. Right? And so last week I helped out with an event where the inn is. I helped out in the fundraising booth. I'm like 20 freaking years later, here I am, still isn't made. And we have all these little things. And I had taken that idea, my first idea, and went to a friend who I know very well. She was also my bookkeeper, also when I had my restaurant, very tell it like it is. Yeah. She's like, well, I would never use that because of blah, 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 blah. She's like, this is bad. This one work. What about this? I don't like this. And she really shot my idea down. And I went home and I took her information and I redesigned it. And it is a much better design.
Right.
People don't want to hear that sometimes. And maybe they're not designers, but if you're not going to pace, you need to know what's the criteria, how's it going to be used, who's going to use it, and then get their feedback.
Right.
People, I see this all the time. It's my invention. I'm terrified somebody's going to steal it. I won't show it without an NDA. And I'm not going to steal your idea because I don't give a shit about your idea. I don't care how good your idea is. I do not care anything about how good it is. Right. I'm not going to steal it because look, I don't even have all mine off the ground. Right. Why would I care about your idea? But I can give you some feedback. I can coach you. But people they're terrified that someone who's another inventor is going to take their idea. And I can see why companies don't want to work with inventors. You can see where you need somebody between a realtor and their house. People are like, this is my house. I don't know if I want to sell it. That's why you have a realtor to be the go-between.
No, and I think that's probably, I know you had gave the story earlier when the person was like, hey, I'll call you when I'm ready. I think that is a big thing because they don't want people to come back and say, hey, I talked to him about or her about the ideal and they didn't do anything. And next thing you know, they came up with the ideal themselves and they just try to avoid that and say, hey, I don't even really want to talk to anybody. But I will say something, just maybe playing not devil's advocate, but on the other side of things, I'll try to, if you're not going to have an NDA, and maybe this is like the attorney side of me is saying, hey, just kind of keep things general, because it is this thing where the more you disclose, here in the U.S., they give you a year when you if you have a public disclosure before you're barred from filing a patent application. So to the extent that you kind of are telling all this stuff and you come out with that patent, say a year and a half later, and you get the patent, but then that person say, hold on, they told me about this thing a year before. It can come up in a theoretical situation where now your patent is invalidated or you're prohibited from getting a patent because you disclose the information to somebody, which again is considered a public disclosure without an NDA, without any type of confidentiality agreement. Then when you go to like countries such as China or some countries in Europe, that public disclosure is an automatic bar. In the U.S., they at least give you a year before they give you a year to file that application once it's been a public disclosure. In some countries, such as China, I think even like Germany, that's an automatic bar. Once you disclose, you can no longer file a patent on it. So I guess I will say just kind of be mindful of that when you're disclosing everything to somebody else, whether it's a friend or a family member, without NDA. Again, if you're kind of talking about generally the concept, okay, that's one thing. But if you're showing them drawings of the thing and then you're kind of showing them drawings of the next thing and all that, then it could be, I guess, a double-edged sword. If I kind of
what I did is I did focus groups. I had my first prototype, which was just awful. I mean, it wasn't well done, and that was garbage in, garbage out. The files weren't well done, weren't well executed, so the plastic container wasn't. But it was enough to show the idea. And I had 50 women. I did a survey form, had them answer questions without their name on it. So I did it in groups in person. I had some luncheons and showed it and explained it. And then I got feedback, and it was amazing feedback. It was, I would use it for this. I would use it for this. I would use it for this. That doesn't seem to ever be that somebody doesn't come up with a different, I would use it for this craft. I would use it for this. So it was very useful feedback, but I also had them sign when they did that, when they came for lunch, sign this NDA and do it. I didn't do that with my good friend. I have heard from somebody, I know there's a story out there where somebody's neighbor supposedly took off and made the product that they came up with. I think that would be really, if it wasn't somebody skilled in the art, I think that'd be really hard to have that happen, because most people are miles behind you. Yeah,
for sure.
And then also keep in mind that in this competitive world, it's people are buying from you, those they know, like, and trust. But also, if you've got a great product, if you see how much competition is out there, the world is so big.
Yeah.
That there's room for thousands of sellers. If I feel a lot less worried about competition if you believe in yourself.
I got you.
Come up with.
And I definitely agree with that. And which, again, I guess to the audience members, I think that's maybe a good plug for you guys. If you're worried about competition, like, man, I know if you have enough belief in yourself and the product is a good product, then you're going to be good regardless. So then I guess on the flip side of things, what would you say was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome? Was it the fact that you had maybe such a challenging experience with 8 attorneys at $45,000 and kind of with the first time around with the prep and serve tailgate box, or just kind of going through this whole process as an inventor from kind of the beginning of time to where you are today? What would you say was your biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge is that I still haven't made, and that's my own personal, like, not having the time and money and people behind it. So I really want to get a group behind it, because I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar use product so what I'm really trying to do is change the way we package food so that it's less plastic waste. That's just a huge thing, right? You need a huge company like Rubbermaid to get on board, but are they going to include me in the conversation? I don't know. But my big goal of getting that made and getting it made right had a lot of obstacles, but I still know it will be made. I don't know if I will I don't know if I'll be a big player in that or not. But when you think about every time that you use your computer and you have the same plug in the computer and this and the USB, right? So if we had food storage of squares, not round, I call them soft squares because it's like having a rounded corner, easy to clean. Yeah. Sorry. These are the glass ones. But if you have a same size fits all, they can stack, nest, and store, and you don't have your whole cupboard. You don't have the Tupperware drawer full of crap. Sure. Yeah. And then you can exchange with people, and you can stack them and you can reuse. Like we used to save. My mom used to always save the Cool Whip containers and the margarine containers back when we ate margarine.
Yeah, for sure. I remember those days. Yeah,
so that biggest challenge is not ever having that made. I think and there's a lot of reasons and I'm not going to make excuses that all rests on me not getting it done, but there were so many obstacles. And the first few people who ever started off with it, there was a huge plastics company. They made beautiful stuff. And he was like, this is great. This would be wonderful. We could make this. We could add this to our line. And I was at cloud nine. That was years, that's 20 years ago. And then he came back to me and said, after the weekend, he came back to me and said, I've talked to my board and they said, no, we can't take this on because we can't afford to buy the patent, but it won't, if we don't own it, it will financially not make sense to do this. So they said no. And I was in tears. So the poor guy, it was just, so it was just like, there's been a lot of things that have happened over that, but challenges that I still want to get it made.
I got you. No, yeah, I'm definitely rooting for you that still gets made. Like you said, it definitely seems exciting. And like you said, the market is huge for it. So the success definitely will be there at some point.
I might be 80 by then, but...
So then I wanted to ask you, because I always like to ask anytime I have a guest on who's a woman, and just asking about like your experience as a woman being in kind of this space, dealing with patents and business ownership and products and bringing things to market. How has your experience been with that? I always kind of interested in getting that feedback.
I always thought women would be the most supportive, moving the ball forward. And I would say, I can't speak to that. I cannot say that they do a better job of helping you.
Okay.
Yes, there's some that will, and no, there's some that won't. There's women that don't have the time of day for you, no matter which way. I've had really good, I've just had really good women be involved, but then other ones that don't, that's more competition or something. Is all I would say. And there's men always get derided now as like, fuck them, blah, blah, blah. And yet there's these men all along the way that have tried to help move the ball forward. Yeah. It's just person to person. It doesn't really, to me, I really wish it would be women. I did go to a conference this last year with Bold Sky is the group, and they've been very supportive. In fact, that group's on right now, my mastermind with that group. Nice. And so I'm going to switch off to that when we get off here. And that was really a good move forward. And it's women that have already had their inventions produced for the most part. Gotcha. So we're kind of on the same line where we can really, the Women Inventors group on Facebook that I'm in is really a good resource to hear stories and to find people. My patent attorney is a woman. I'm very happy with her. And I wouldn't say you need a female patent attorney. I've had both. Yeah. But it's like you said, communication, like you're a good communicator. You'd be a great attorney to have. Yeah. But I've been with her long enough. And she also she doesn't blow smoke. I know there's women patent attorneys that'll write a patent. You'll get a patent. It's worthless because your product isn't, it can just be worked around. Yeah. My patent attorney will not. She's like, why do you want to spend the money doing that? That's not even going to do anything. She won't take the money just to take the money. Right. So she's been great.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's great. That's great. That's great. So then I guess the last two questions I have for you is what advice, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier as far as what advice would you give just to aspiring entrepreneurs, those who are kind of doing a double dutch? Do they get in the game? Do they not get in the game? What advice would you give to them to maybe help persuade their decision one way or the other?
Well, keep your day job.
I like that. I definitely like that.
Whatever. There was a guy really early on. This guy said, "Oh my God, don't quit your job." When I quit my state job, and I said, "I have something you don't have. I have a husband that's employed." Well, now I don't have a husband that's employed. We have a boyfriend that hates my product. He hates this whole thing because we would remodel houses and have fun together doing that, and I'm really too busy with this stuff to do that anymore. But also, so keep that other income till you see a path to income, because this can be your side hustle until it makes the right time to take the leap. And then, be sure and do your market research. It's so easy to do market research now. I mean, there's so many ways to look things up, TikTok and Facebook and Google. And, there's just 1,000 ways to look things up, to find things. And I have found ChatGPT to be very, very helpful with writing stuff. It's pretty freaking amazing. It's scary. I mean,
for sure, man. But again, it's scary on one end, but on the other end, it can be extremely helpful when you're talking about having a business and having to kind of do different write-ups and kind of using that tool to help you out with it. That's going to be a lot less expensive than going to a marketing firm or an advertisement firm. So, I mean, I definitely think it can be helpful. So then the last question is, how can people follow you and purchase the product? So I know we have Easy Light Wraps that's available for purchase.
That's the one that's available for purchase, is Easy Light Wraps. So those shades, these are the shades that cover bathroom lights and all those houses I showed the other day. So now they bang that up. They go up in 2 minutes from the package to the light, and it's to cover those bare bulb bath lights and update it. I have 2 in my townhouse, is why I finally got going on that, because it was like the rusty one in the basement is covered up. It magnets right on. But I have marjweir.com, with Marj with a J. But I also have, I did get Snacklebox. I have mylunchbox.com is the name of the easy to remember one, mylunchbox.com. And that is, has the survey and a sign up for that, because I do want to get that going. I do want investment. I do want people that are interested. I'm sure you're showing mostly to other inventors, but if there's somebody who's going, oh my God, I had a food storage idea, well, come work with me instead of trying to make your own, because I know what I have is the best at this point in time that it could be, because of the amount of information I've gotten over that many years. So
nice. And then from a social media standpoint, is it any platforms? I know I've kind of...
I have a trillion websites and Instagram, because I have Easy Light Wraps on Instagram and on Facebook, and I have Prep and Serve on Facebook. I don't keep things up like they should be, but we are getting, and I'm on TikTok with Easy Light Wraps.
Okay.
I have other, personal stuff. And
well, I definitely...
it's way more than I can deal with.
I need
a permanent social media person, but I'm just, when I can afford it, that will be my thing. Yeah.
You say, hey, we just have to take baby steps with this thing. Well, I know a couple of them that once the interview comes out, I will put in the description so that people can go check it out, whether it's the website or the different social media platforms, and follow you on.
And some football players that are some sports people that see that tailgater box. I'm not somebody who tailgates. I have a really quick story for you, is that I did Startup Weekend, which is where you go work an entire weekend, Friday and Saturday night till Sunday afternoon on your startup, except a fake startup, not even your own. And you're working for free on somebody's idea over a weekend. It's called Startup Weekend. I don't even know if they have them anymore. And I left there Saturday night, and it was Halloween, and there were all these people dressed up downtown, and I was like, and it was freezing in Minnesota. And I was like, thank God I'm not one of those girls in a short skirt standing outside freezing. And I came back the next day to work for free again. And there were people setting up tailgating. And I went over and showed them my idea and got some great feedback. But I was like, oh my God, it's so weird to find your people and go, I'd rather do this.
Yeah.
Sit outside and drink beer in a Vikings cup. It's just everybody to each their own, right?
No, for sure.
But I know that it'd be good for tailgating, because those guys were like all over it. So.
No, and I see the jersey in the background, played football for Michigan State back in my college days. And even then today, I'm not as big of a tailgater as you may think for someone who plays sports and love to watch it.
You're busy. You were playing.
Right. Exactly. So, but no, that's cool. I have to kind of check with my buddies who are doing a lot of tailgating, kind of definitely see what they think about the product. That'll be an interesting Because I know it's
Love it. I love
tailgating is a big thing. Tailgating is a huge thing. So especially for football, but it seems like kind of tailgate for other sports as well. But I know football is probably the cream of the crop. But no, thank you, Marj, for kind of stopping in. Yeah, this was a fun one, and we had shared a lot of laughs and some crazy moments. Audience, hopefully you got something out of this one. She dropped a lot of jewels, and somebody who's been doing this for a long time. She has had the some war stories or comparing, but she also has some good stories that kind of balanced those out, so it wasn't just kind of a terrible ride all the way through. And then again, it's still on an incline here, especially with the tailgater box and with the new product, Easy Bar Box, to be on the lookout for, especially in the restaurant industry, bars and things like that. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. Until next time, audience, take care.
Thank you so much.